All right there, sports fans. Howdy. I'm still working on the final part of the counseling, but I want to go ahead and just do this podcast on discipline. Discipline is kind of one of those things that, I don't know, a lot of people think they understand what we mean by discipline, think that there's just a simple set of just being compliant and obedient, but I think it's a little bit more than that. And I like this guy, General Schofield. Schofield, who Schofield Barracks in Hawaii is named after. So General Schofield had a pretty decent definition, I think, of discipline, what it meant. So we'll give you a little background on him. So if you see here, of course, he was a general during the Civil War. He's a West Point, of course, graduate, right? He was chief of staff for Nathaniel Lyon. He was a brigadier general for Missouri. Again, commander of the Department of the Missouri military. And of course, he was given command of the Army of the Ohio, right? And led the Atlanta campaign. He was the opposite general to John Hood in Tennessee, in the Tennessee fighting. And then, fighting at Franklin, Nashville, under Secretary of War Andrew Johnson, and then held various commands. And became a commander of the U.S. Army. Appointed to Lieutenant General shortly before he retired in 1895. He was awarded the Medal of Honor for the Battle at Wilson's Creek. Again, graduated West Point, 7th out of 52, so I guess he was a pretty smart guy. And again, he repulsed Hood at Franklin, Tennessee, which is a pivotal point for the Civil War, particularly in the Western Campaign area for the Union. Again, extremely active in closing operations, and then served as Secretary for War under President Johnson. Later was a superintendent at West Point, and of course he was very much an advocate for the United States annexing Hawaii, particularly for Pearl Harbor, as a naval base to extend our military operations in the Pacific, towards Asia. So here was his definition, right? Discipline which makes the soldiers of a free country reliable in battle is not gained by harsh or tyrannical treatment. On the contrary, such treatment is far more likely to destroy than make an army. It is possible to impart instruction and give command in such a manner, in such a tone of voice as to inspire the soldier. No feeling but an intense desire to obey. While the opposite manner and tone of voice cannot fail but to excite strong resentment and desire to disobey. The one mode or the other in dealing with subordinates springs from a correspondent spirit in the breast of the commander. He who feels the respect which is due to others cannot fail but to inspire them to regard for himself. Why he who feels and hence manifests disrespect towards others, especially his inferiors, cannot fail to inspire in them a hatred for himself. So so there's some 19th century language there. What he's saying is, it's not saying that you can't be tough. He's not saying that you can't be, professional. He's not saying that you can't have high standards. What he's saying is, when you communicate, all right, you have to be objective and you have to be professional, and you can't, resort to ad hominem attacks. You might, well, what do you mean ad hominem? Ad hominem means insults, just personal insults, right? Being cynical, being snide, being sarcastic, doesn't really help get people to obey or want to obey. In many cases, it just creates resentment. And so, I truly have been on the receiving end of both of these. There are leaders I've had that, yes, I would walk to the gates of hell with gasoline drawers on because they asked me to or ordered me to. And then there's others that I wouldn't piss on if they were laying at my feet engulfed in flame. No, because I hated them. And why did I hate them? Because they were just, just disrespectful to me. They were just mean. They were bullies. They were belligerent. There was no pleasing them. And the best I could do was just to avoid them at all costs. I agree with his definition of discipline. My experience has definitely led me through decades of it, being a follower and a leader. I agree with what he says here. Now, when we talk about discipline and how this relates, right? Discipline is, according to this, is a former chief of staff of the Army. He was a monumental chief of staff. He's the one who took us into the 21st century. So he says, his quote here is, it's not the fear of punishment for doing something wrong, but the faith and value of doing something right. The faith in the value of doing something right, not worrying about being punished. And he also said of Schofield's definition, Schofield framed those words in 1879, but they are as true today as they were then. Yeah. So it is. It is very accurate. On taking an oath, soldiers volunteer to forgo certain individual liberties to the point they must be willing to sacrifice their lives for the good of the nation. It is this voluntary surrender of individual liberties for the common good that makes any abuse of authority by leaders appointed over soldiers so egregious and devastating to discipline. I agree with that as well. Anytime you join an organization, it requires you to take an oath of selfless service, dedicating yourself to selfless service, that you are going to willingly forego certain individual liberties, and you're going to exercise that discipline required for selfless service, that denial of those privileges, if you will. Yeah, that's got to be understood and respected, and but does that mean that you should be revered for it? Well, no, it doesn't mean that. But what it does mean is it means when you deal with your subordinates, you got to remember, they volunteered to be here. They can vote with their feet, and you might think, well, let them leave. Okay, well, then eventually you're either going to have nobody, or you're going to have people that could be probably worse. I remember I used to tell some of my subordinate leaders when they wanted to just kick people out versus working with them a little bit and figuring out is it a matter of a lack of understanding, or is it a matter of a lack of motivation? And or sometimes I'd hear the funniest remark, "Oh, he's just saying that he's just doing that because he knows it just make me mad." I'm like, well, okay, when you get mad, right? I mean, do you just like not say anything, or what do you do? What do you do when he makes you mad? Oh, I smoke him. I smoke his ass. Oh, okay. So you smoke him. You PT the crap out of him. Okay, great. So then what you're saying is he likes to be PT'd. He likes to be smoked. Because if he knows if you say he's doing it because to provoke you, to make you mad, and that's your instinctive reaction, then he's a masochist. He likes being punished. And they would think, well, no, okay, well then maybe he's not doing it to make you mad. Maybe he's just doing it because he doesn't know any better. Because nobody's ever sat down long enough to talk to him and figure out how he thinks, or what he knows or what he doesn't know. You're just assuming he knows this. You're just making an assumption here. You don't know. You got to assess the guy, right? Figure it out. Oh, by the way, we can get rid of him. But, I'm not going to guarantee you're going to get a better model. You might get a better model. You might get a worse model. You might get more of the same. I don't know. You might not get somebody for a while, So it's something to think about, right? Eventually, if you're doing an organization that requires followers and leaders, if you run off all the followers, who you got to lead, right? So how long can your organization endure that attrition? So for the Army, how does discipline relate? Well, again, This is the root word of disciplinarian, which is to teach or instruct, right? It's a system of teaching and nurturing prepare soldiers to achieve competence, self-control, self-direction, and caring for others. Right? NCOs must be able to train and mentor the NCOs of tomorrow effectively. So the NCO colors, we actually have traditional colors in the United States Army for the NCO Corps. They are teal and gold. Gold is symbolic for excellence and achievement, and teal is a color symbolic of resurgence and reemergence. What does that mean? It means that we develop our replacements. It means we grow our own. we take our privates that are our seed corn, and we pick the best ones, and we nurture them, and we grow them into new plants, and hopefully more healthy and bigger than what we were, right? And so, you want a success on a solid foundation, you've got to have that idea, that concept. I don't care what organization you're in. Your job as a leader is to develop your subordinates to the best of their capabilities. Hopefully that there's some in there that can eventually replace you, right? Because there should be somebody mentoring you to replace them at the next echelon, and so on. That's how organizations sustain themselves. So Webster's talks about, training intended to elicit a specified pattern of behavior or character. Like a battle drill, right? Maybe with deliberate thought, maybe not with deliberate thought, right? Behavior that results from such training, a condition of order based upon obedience to authority, okay, or compliance, sure. But still, we're not saying be an automaton, right? Train to develop by teaching and control. How about even just developing a specific set of character and actions and dialogue, and just doing routine things routinely that are especially good for you, right? So the system of discipline best for today's NCO, right? So we look at, you want to be, if you are positive and supportive, right, of those relationships, and you have interpersonal relationships with your subordinates where they trust you, because you have to develop trust, because you can't teach, coach, or mentor somebody who doesn't trust you. Just like you won't listen to somebody that you don't trust. You won't do it, right? But you've got to have a systematic teaching, strengthening, desired behaviors, proactive, right? Okay. And then you need to have reactive, right, for decreasing or eliminating undesired or ineffective behaviors. So you reinforce the good stuff and you eliminate the bad stuff, which is reactive, right? Which, when we talk about punishments, right, disciplining people, right? But you have to do all of these. You have to have a systematic plan of development. You have to have a strategy to strengthen the good, maintain the good stuff, and then a strategy for decreasing or eliminating what's undesired. And you have to do all of the three of these things as all equally well and all objectively done to improve behavior, right? To condition, if you will. Right? And then those essential components, again, supportive and positive command climate, right? Trust. Are you my advocate? Do you really care about me? Right? And again, the positive reinforcement. So like granting somebody a reward, a promotion, an award, a privilege, if you will, for doing what we want them to do, right? Bonuses. Now, I used to give a lot of bonuses for stuff like that back in the Continental Army times. They actually used to pay people bonuses, especially when they captured big prizes, like in the Navy. If they captured an enemy ship, that would be could be sold, and parts of it could be sold, and the cargo could be confiscated and sold, and sailors would get paid a bounty for that kind of stuff, depending on how well they operated during the engagement. But but like Roman times, they would pay Roman legionnaires bounties, rewards for being heroes and stuff like that. Just like the leaders would earn lands and conquer territories and slaves that they could sell or keep. Um, but what I'm saying is that just as quickly as you want to punish somebody for bad behavior, how about also recognizing them for good behavior, right? Particularly in front of everybody, because that's the audience you want them to see, right? And then again, this is part of your climate, right? Okay. Um, so yeah, we want to promote optimal leader to soldier relationships, right? Or optimal, upperclassman to subordinate, right? Whatever it may be, right? Basically, your subordinates have to feel like they're part of the team. They have to feel like they matter. They have to feel like they're invested. They have to feel like they're empowered. If they don't, hmm, why do they need to stay or really be dedicated to that organization, right? When we talk about command climate, right? Again, it's not about rainbows, lollipops, sunshine, everything. It's also not, about that. It's a very stormy, very dramatic environment where, everything seems to be chaotic and you're just adrift, right? What it needs to be is it needs to be a predictable and stable environment where people will know that it's okay to try and fail. All right, it's okay to you might need more practice to master things, and people are going to help you. Right, you're not going to let them fall the wayside. You know, as a platoon sergeant, well, first, as a young man, I mean, I was a bit callous at times. Absolutely. We'd be doing a formation run, and nobody likes to run in formation. No one. I mean, if you like to run at all, I mean, most good runners, they run on their own, right? They run by themselves. They run where they can, just kind of, get in the zone and push themselves and look at the clock and do those kind of things. And for me, I even just take that time just to think about things, just to kind of, meditate a little bit while I'm running. Um, and so, but it's a good time of solitude, right? And you run your pace, and you don't have to worry about, smelling somebody's funkiness or having to listen to a bunch of moaning, groaning, a bunch of bullshit. Just people stepping on your shoes and stuff. But yeah, we did formation runs a lot more when I was a young soldier because it's just a lot of leaders were distrustful of that young men would go out and actually push themselves and do PT. So they make everybody train the lowest common denominator. And so, yeah, the only time you did individual runs was when you were taking a PT test. Everything else was the lowest level we did PT was platoon level PT. So we did platoon PT or we did company PT, right? And then, of course, once a month, we'd have to have a battalion or a brigade run. Motivation run is what they called it, which is not motivating at all unless you're the road guard. I like being a road guard because you can just fly out there and have a good time and get out of the formation, not have to worry about singing, the same Jody calls over and over and over again because nobody can seem to learn a new one, right? But all that being said, back to the story is that I'd be in every now and then when I had to be in the formation. There'd be a guy in there in the middle, and he's falling back and speeding up and falling back and speeding up, and really causing everybody to play this kind of slinky thing, right? Which it's just annoying, right? And he'd be, moaning and groaning and just being very much a drama. And I would be like, I'd look over at him. And I mean, because I was just pissed off at this point, I just look him right next to him, get right next to their ear hole, and I just say, I start going, like even worse than what they were doing, right? And then they'd look over at me, and then once I had their attention, I'd say real loud for the whole formation to hear, and the Oscar for Best Supporting Actress in a Dramatic Role goes to you. Shut up and run. and or fall out. And sometimes they'd shut up and run. Sometimes they'd fall out. And either way, it didn't matter to me because The guy wasn't my guy, and I got tired of dealing with the back and forth, back and forth. Now, was that the appropriate thing to do? No, was not. Did I feel good for a little bit? Yeah, I sure did. I got some laughs out of the formation, but in the end, I felt kind of guilty because, yeah, I just kind of embarrassed this guy. And if this guy didn't like me before, I'm certainly thinks he probably despises me now, right? Made no friends with that guy. So, as I became a squad leader, and then we would finally got to do some squad PT most of the time, and then platoon PT, and of course, you know, the big guys would come do squad PT with me like once every month or so because I would PT so hard, and of course they would even like act like well he's just doing that because I'm here. It's like no, when they'd go ask my guys, they're like no, hey, actually that was an easy day for us because no, I'd assess my men and I would know what they needed, and we would, I'd do my 6 weeks of PT training out with a goal towards a specific, physical achievement for everybody, for the whole team, right, for the whole squad. And so, yeah, we PT'd hard for a good hour, hour and a half, right? I mean, we PT'd hard, and so, and that was okay. And I led it, and I led from the front, and we went with task execution standards, and we followed it. And then so I never really had any guys falling out per se, except for one guy. And then eventually I just got him put out of the Army because even though he could pass the PT test, he just kept falling out of runs because he just lacked motivation. And while we counseled him and everything like that, guess what? Okay, we don't need you. You can go home. And so we barred him for reenlistment. He had to get out. And then as a platoon sergeant, then I started, seeing, okay, now I got a bigger audience. I was having a few falls. So the way to fix that was, hey man, we're not gonna leave a guy falling behind. So we started carrying, rigid litters in the back of the formation. Two of the best runners, each got a collapsible litter. They carried it on their shoulder, just a few spaces back behind the platoon. Guy starts falling back. We put him in the front, make him set the pace. If he can't keep his own pace, then we'd scoop him up and we'd start doing litter relays with the guy, and give him a little rest, good 4-minute rest, and then kick him off, and then get him back in the formation, and we just keep doing that until we finished our 5-mile run, right, or whatever it was. And so we practiced that way. We're also practicing CASEVAC relays, as well as, not leaving a fallen person, because that violates the range of creed. And it established within the platoon, right? And just like when I was a first sergeant, we'd get back from a company run, and then they'd give me the fallout status, and I'd grab the sergeants, like the guys who fell out, and I'd make the sergeants grab them. And guess what? Y'all owe me, those guys who fell out of the run, they owe me another mile. So this is time for retraining. So sergeants, you take them, you run them another mile, and when you get back, I want to see the counselings on my desk by close of business today of what the plan of action to get these guys in shape where they will not fall out any more runs, period. And that's what we did. We and as a sergeant major, same thing. When I'd see the stragglers as they would come at the end of the run, I'd pull them off the side by the battalion headquarters, and then make them sit there. And then the first sergeants, when they got back to their companies, they'd come up and see me, and they'd see who the guys are, and they knew the deal. They'd take that soldier, they'd grab the platoon sergeant, squad leader, team leader, they'd make them go do another mile, 2 miles, and then write counsels on them, because it's just being fair. It's being fair. It's being honest, and we care. We're not going to leave them behind, and we're not going to just yell at them, and we're not just going to call them names. We're going to train these guys and do our best. So if they still can't figure it out, okay, fine. We can then, involuntarily separate them. And then everybody knows we're just being fair. We're being fair. We're being professional, right? It's not personal, okay? And so if you got to look at this, right, that's what you got to do, okay? And so you want to decrease right to the end. The best educators are your team leaders or squad leaders, right? The NCOs, right? But they got to be good role models, right? So they can't be like do as I say, not as I do. They got to walk it like they talk it, right? All leaders do, okay? And you want them to want to imitate you. You want them to take your best habits and incorporate them into their own leadership style. So things you should think about, right? When we say maintaining positive emotional tone, that means like, don't be showing them your tonsils if you don't need to, right? You can talk to them in a very professional, impersonal, right? Non-aggressive, I know everybody watches the drill instructor videos where the Marines are just barking and snapping and all that kind of stuff. And that's great. I mean, if that's what they want to do, that's what they want to do. Far be it for me to judge it. But I'll tell you this, I never responded to horse shit like that. I didn't respond to it when I was a private with a drill sergeant. I would just I would just tolerate it because I wanted to be a soldier, and just realize, geez, Louise. As a drill sergeant, I didn't talk to people like that. I didn't have to. Yeah, it's just, you come off as being unhinged. You come off as being a caricature, right? But yeah, and then when positive reinforcement, they do well. Yeah, I commend them. Yeah, you did that great. In fact, you know what? I want you to be my assistant instructor. You're really good at this. I need you to help me out, right? And then, listen to them. Don't listen to respond. Listen to hear what they got to say, right? We talked about with the counseling, right? And then be aware of what interests them. What are their goals, right? Because, while you might have certain goals for them, if they don't have those goals, dude, they're not going to get them done, no matter how much you want. I mean, that's one thing, that some of you become parents, you better realize too, is that your children, right, there's things you'll want for them, but if they don't want it, they don't want it. I see quite a bit of it. There's a lot of cadets that show up to the Corps and you want it, and then supposedly want a commission, but they don't. It's not they want to do it. Their parents want them. When the cadets are trying to talk to the incoming fish, the parents are asking all the questions. The fish is just like sitting there, like playing with their phone or whatever, right? Like oblivious. And it's just, yeah, okay. So some parents don't understand that, just like, so I'm not saying as a leader you're a parent, but you're like a big brother, big sister. So yeah, you can't, you can't, force your will. So figure out what they might be interested in, and then maybe use that in order to connect to the things that you want for them, right? And help persuade them. Okay? Got to provide, predictability in their schedule, right? You need to do that. You got to be flexible yourself, right? You got to learn how to the things you can't control, you just must react, and you got to react to it in a positive manner. If you lose your shit and overreact, that scares people, right? And so listening, interpersonal communications, learning how to influence and negotiate with them, right? Heck, if they're motivated and they kind of have somewhat sense of ability, more mature sensibility to critically think, involve them in the decision making. Particularly if you want them to improve themselves, you really want them to come up with the plan. You just guide them and help them. You eventually want to get them to figure it out, because if it's their plan, then they have to own it, right? And again, even with the best climates, every now and then you're going to have to discipline somebody, or you're going to have to, understand that you're just going to have to agree to disagree, right? And just work around those areas where you don't agree, right? And that's okay. Again, rewards is one particular part of enforcing this is what we want, this is what we expect. You can expect to be recognized if this is what you're going to do and this is how you're going to be, right? And again, you do it in front of a larger audience, because that's the message that gets around quicker, and they see it directly with their own eyes. And what helps with that, also performance counseling, routine performance counseling, whether after a major event or at regular times, right? And you talk about the things they do well and why. Okay, but then you should also talk about like, okay, a reminder of what the goals are, a reminder of where they may be not necessarily meeting that, and then what is going to be the strategy to fix that, right? So then they know that, hey, somebody's paying attention, somebody's seeing what I'm doing. Then also create opportunities for them to lead or to use critical thinking or to do things, right? Or to challenge themselves. Okay. So this, of course, yeah, this old dugout Doug here, MacArthur, right? Um, so there's some things I don't like about him, but there's some things I do like because he was very much a very eloquent person. Very, of course, because he's very intelligent, right? Um, but here's what he talked about, like soldiers, right? That there is not an adequate way to describe them. He best described them as one of the world's noblest figures, not only one of the finest military characters, but also one of the most stainless. His name and fame, his birthright of every American, and his youth and strength, and his love and loyalty, he gave all that mortality can give. His deeds need no eulogy from me or from any other man. They are written in his own history. And of course, the rest of that goes, and he has written it in the breast of his enemy, in his blood. Yeah. So where do you see your name and fame as an organization, your subordinates? Are you stainless? Are you giving everything you can give? Are you motivating them to give everything that they can give? These are important questions, right? Eric Sasaki, another chief of staff of the Army, very intelligent guy. Again, he talked about, learn to love your soldiers. You're preparing to lead men and women out there in the force. Rise to their expectations. Be equal to the task. Train them to succeed in battle. Grow them into leaders of the future. Care for them and their families with a deep and abiding love they deserve. And when you inevitably ask your soldiers for what seems impossible, they won't let you down. They'll inspire you each and every day. And yes, there will be times where you think a task or a burden, regardless of your organization, might be insurmountable, impossible, if you will. And yet you will still be expected to do it or get your people to do it. And they're not going to do it if they have resentment and disdain for you. And I would tell you the greatest thing that you can do to cause that disdain and resentment is to separate yourself from them through just privileges. Again, leaders eat last. Leaders take care of their soldiers first. Your soldiers get rest before you do. Your soldiers get everything they need before you get what you need as a leader. Yeah. It's important. And so if you are in an organization that calls itself a leadership organization, and that you're doing things and allowing yourself things that your subordinates don't get, right? Then you're going to basically build within your relationship them a resentment, right? I'll give an example. The fact that in the Army, male soldiers can't wear earrings, even though socially, in society, men have always worn earrings. I mean, men wore earrings before women wore earrings. But all that being said, currently in the United States Army, women can wear them with impunity. Women can have ponytails. Women do not have to have the same, grooming standards as men. Why is that? I don't understand, because the grooming standard for men is not designed for just reasons of professional looking. They're really designed for the lessons they learned in the Civil War and in later wars, where health and hygiene. People with beards tended to get sick because they had a bunch of junk in their beards, and got facial skin rashes and got bitten by fleas and stuff that they couldn't see. And later on with protective masks, they couldn't seal them properly. So no beards because you can't see your mask properly, and you're gonna get exposed to mustard gas or whatever. Hair, of course, keep it short so you don't get fleas, you don't get ticks, you don't get parasites in your scalp, and you get sick, and then you get get Lyme disease or get Rocky Mountain spotted fever, and you're taken out of the fight. This is all sorts of stuff, right? The basic tradition of it comes out of just medical pragmatics. Keep your nails short, right? So you don't get junk up underneath your nail, and if you eat, because you don't always get a chance to really wash your hands very well, if you got a bunch of grime underneath your nails are long, you're going to end up with ringworm and tapeworm or stuff like that because you're getting junk from larvae up underneath your skin, underneath your fingernails, into your food, into your mouth. Just there's a number of reasons, but yet, um, I would always laugh at stuff like that. Like, if you want to be my peer and you want to be my equal, then why don't you have to look like I do? Why don't you have to wear the uniform the way I do? Why doesn't your uniform look like my uniform? When just basic. I'm not talking about like individual awards or skill badges or anything like that, right? And I understood, if you're on jump status, you get the privilege of wearing blouse combat boots and a funny looking beret, right? But you earn it because you're in those positions where they're working harder and doing very dangerous stuff, right? And the infantry gets a special cord because, they basically they have a very hard job. It's one of the few things that they can give to people to entice them to want to be in those jobs. So I understand that. But when you take a whole class of people and say, well, because you're this, you get to do this. Because you're that, you get to do that. Okay. Well, dude, then it's no longer a uniform services because we don't have a uniform. Uni is Latin for one. Uniform, one form. So obviously we don't have that in the Army. They don't have that in the Marines. They don't have that in the Navy. They don't have that in the Air Force. And they really don't have it in the Navy because, shoot, I think in the Navy, man, you got some people that wear brown shoes, some people wear black shoes, some people wear white shoes. Holy moly. Just depending on what special area they are. Surface warfare, air warfare, subsurface warfare, special warfare, right? Crazy. Anyway, but discipline. When the biggest thing for individual discipline is, again, just being disciplined in your thoughts, discipline in your habits, doing those things routinely to make you better as a person, and better as a leader, to be somebody with which for people to emulate, right? Leading by example. Those are absolutely critical. So right here, of course, this is Marshall, a general of the Army, former Chief of Staff and Secretary of State. And so when the smoke cleared away, it was a man with a sword or crossbow with a rifle who settled the final issue on the field. So when the smoke clears away, it's that subordinate of yours, right? That where the metal meets the meat, right? That dude, the person at the first contact, at the tip of the spear. They're going to have this final say on what happens and what doesn't happen, right? So you have to understand that. And so, yes, be disciplined yourself as a leader, instill it within your subordinates, be fair, be objective, be professional, right? So that's about time. And thank you for attention to this. I'm going to also, once I get done with the counseling class, I think I'm going to build some classes on some fieldcraft stuff, kind of help people out with some mechanics of how to be how to operate in a field environment, in a austere environment, and also like how to be a professional hobo, if you will, because that's one thing 30 years in the infantry taught me, how to live on the street professionally. And that's all I got for today. And thanks for listening again. Feel free to leave some comments. All right. Bye.